Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for December 14th. If you have a cell phone with you, now would be a good time to turn it off. Where is mine? No idea. Now would be a good time to turn it off. For those of you here with us for the first time, the way this works is we have a few things to take care of kind of at the beginning here. When we get to the main portion of the agenda, we'll go through it one case at a time. We'll have the applicant come, tell us what it is they're here asking us for. Commissioners may or may not ask questions. We'll hear from anyone who's here to speak either in support or against the application. Commissioners may or may not ask questions. We'll have a little bit of discussion and then we'll vote. So we'll start off with the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to receive the minutes from the November 9th meeting. Would you cast your votes, please? They're received. We have continuance requests.
Yes, we actually have several. I will read for the record. For your agenda, item B33, case ED 221, deferred to January 11th. Item B34, case CE 956, deferred to January 11th. Item B35 on your agenda, case SPUD 1021, deferred to January 11th. Item B36 for case SPUD 1023, deferred to January 11th. Item B37 for case SPUD 1024, deferred to January 11th. Item B38 for C6956, deferred to January 11th. Item B39 for case SPUD 1003, deferred to January 25th. Item B40 on your agenda for case PUD 1655, deferred to January 4th. Item B41 for case PUD 1658, deferred to February 8th. Item B42 for case PUD 1645, deferred to February 22nd. Item B43, case SPUD 967, deferred to February 22nd. Item B44 for case PUD 1581, deferred to March 22nd. And item B45 for case C6715, deferred to March 22nd. So again, items 33 through 45 on the agenda.
Is there anybody here today who thought that they wanted to speak on any of those items? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move for adoption.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 33 through 45 to the date specified. Would you cast your votes, please? Those cases are continued.
We also received two new requests for continuance for item B14 on the agenda for case SPUD 1019 to defer to January 11th, and for item B25 on the agenda for SPUD 1018 to defer to January 25th.
Is there anybody present who thought that they wanted to be heard on either of those cases? If not, I'll take a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue items number 14 and 25. Would you cast your votes, please? Those items are continued. We have some items on the consent docket, which means that they'll be adopted without discussion. Can you read those for us?
Sure. On the consent docket, item 1 is for ABC 915 and ABC overlay at 4420 West I-40 Service Road. Item 2 is case PC 10520 to rezone 3300 North Cimarron Road from I-1 and I-2 to I-1. Item number 3 is case PC 10519 to rezone 1320 Northwest 1st from R3 to I-1. Item 4 is case C6946, the final plat of Whispering Creek, located at Southwest 59th and County Line Road. And item 5 is PV 101 to vacate a portion of the final plat of the industrial park located at Southeast 59th and I-35.
Is there anyone present who thought they wanted to be heard on any one of those items? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move the consent docket.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, to approve the items on the consent docket, items 1 through 5. Would you cast your votes, please? And they are approved.
Moving on to items requiring separate vote. On your agenda, number 6 is case SP 500. It's a special permit to operate a community recreational use in the R1 district.
Is the applicant present? Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Love, 16200 Sonoma Park Drive in Edmond. Here today looking for your approval on 9 extra holes that we want to add to our existing golf course at Surrey Hills. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do we have questions for the applicant? We do have someone who has signed up to speak on this matter.
Just so I'm clear on this map.
Yes.
So we got the PTs, which I don't typically play, but those go over the residential street. Is that right? Because
no,
the map says it does.
We cross the residential streets going from one green to another tee box. We don't hit over.
You don't hit over the trees.
No.
Okay, over the streets.
No.
Excuse me.
No.
I didn't. All right.
We platted
That's
this
very
about
helpful.
12 years ago when we did the Fairways edition, so it's already kind of been set up a long time ago. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So it's just tee to green.
yes.
It's okay.
Yeah. No, we don't want
Just
that.
saying.
We don't want that
I can't
liability.
approve that.
Right.
All right. That's a question I had with regard to the
I do
map.
have someone who has signed up to speak on this matter. Is there a Seth Von, is it Tunglin?
Yes. Where would you like me to
Either way, either place is fine. Just give us your name and address for the record.
Attorney Seth Von Tungelen, address 6414 North Santa Fe Avenue, Suite A, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
What do you want us to know about
I'm
this?
here on behalf of a few of the homeowners, one of which didn't actually receive a notice, but there was a small meeting sometime within the last week or so. My cousins live out at Surrey Hills, and they're actually one of the homeowners that are on that are going to be around this golf course. They don't oppose the golf course, but there are some layouts of the holes that the homeowners would like to speak with the developer about. Primarily, if you look on the map, and what's highlighted is a 70 and a 50. These 70 feet and 50 feet were actually pretty generous from what I understand. On the 50 side, that first house right there is about $1 million house. The next house into it, their backyard has about 30 feet, if that, from the edge of the golf course. The concern is that this is supposed to be a par 4 currently, from what I understand. And the concern is that people are going to get up there with their drivers in larger woods, and they're going to hit the ball, and it's going to go over into the residential houses and do damage to the roofs or the windows or whatever else there may be around there. And so what the homeowners would like to do is schedule a meeting with the developer to sit down, look at a way to possibly rotate some of the holes around, possibly make that a par 3 instead of a par 4 so that you don't have the larger clubs spraying balls all over the place like I do. As far as these tee boxes, and I heard what the applicant said, but it's my understanding from what my cousins relay, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. They both were not able to attend today. But from what they represent to me is that those tee boxes are just the pro tees, not the women's tees or the regular hitting tees, but just the pro tees are supposed to be on the other side of the road. I could be incorrect. I don't know. I haven't seen it. However, they would request that this matter be pushed off to the January 11th meeting, have an opportunity to discuss with the developer, and get a better understanding of how the whole layouts are.
Mr. Love? Have you had a chance to meet with the neighbors out at Surrey Hills?
No, this is the first I've heard of that meeting. He said I think they met last week about it. So we had this plat, I think, in front of you all 12, maybe 15 years ago. So before we sold any of those lots or any of those houses, we zoned. They asked for a special zoning for that to be a golf course, so we wouldn't be able to sell it one day and have apartments or other homes there. So, my response is they knew they were going to live on a golf course well before they purchased the lot or built a house. So,
Would you like to take a continuance and go meet with the neighbors and see if you can answer their questions and concerns between now and the 11th of January?
well, sure, we can, yeah, if we need to do that. So, I mean, our
I think that'd be a lovely idea.
okay, sure.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move the continuance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 6 until January the 11th. Would you cast your votes, please? We'll see you then.
Thanks.
Item number 7 is DA 25144. It's a lot split deed approval located at 2402 West Memorial Road. It does require a variance to the subdivision regulations.
Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Seth Barkheimer with Olson Associates, representing the client, and address is 201 Northwest 63rd Street. That's Suite 130, Oklahoma City.
And what is it that you're asking for?
Pretty standard lot split. We're here because it's the 4th lot split on an existing plat. So there's been 3 previous administrative lot splits. So be happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Do we have any questions? Is there anyone here today that wanted to be heard on this matter? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application. Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We need a motion on the variance.
Move the variance.
I have a motion and a second to approve variance to section 3.4.4.C21 of the subdivision regulations. Cast your votes, please. It is approved. I'll take a motion on the application.
Move the application.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 7. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Item 8 is C6950, the preliminary plat of Taylor Manor 2.
Good afternoon, Jason Spencer with Craft and Tull here on behalf of the applicant. So before you is a preliminary plat for Taylor Manor 2. It's located north of 23rd Street, east of MacArthur. It's approximately 7 acres, 22 single-family lots. It will be a gated community, so it'll be private streets but public utilities. It'll take the access off of Moulton Drive on the east. This preliminary plat does conform to the subdivision regs and the R1 zoning. We agree with the TEs and would ask for your approval.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Mr. Spencer? If not, I'll take a... Is there anybody present who wanted to be heard on this matter? There is. I'm sorry. Would you come forward, please? Give us your name and address for the record. While you're doing that, I should tell everybody else, I neglected to at the beginning, if you have an item you want to speak to this afternoon, there should be some of these forms on the table right outside the door. If you would get one and fill it out, that would be helpful to us. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Martin Johnson. I live at 5800 Northwest 26th Street. We live just west of where they're wanting to put this all in. My concern is the water drainage. I have never seen anything about it, or nobody's ever talked about it.
You're concerned that this development will cause additional drainage problems in the area, or?
It will stop the drainage,
Oh,
because all the water runs down MacArthur to 26th Street and comes straight down our street in a natural flow of the land. Goes right straight across it. From the last I understood, that they were wanting to build the lots up. By doing that, it would take and restrict the flow of the water. There's no drains or anything right there.
We don't have any comments regarding drainage. Mr. Spencer, did you want to?
So it is correct, the water flows from the west to the east across our site, ultimately to the southeast corner of our site. We'll have a stormwater detention pond there. What we're looking at doing is there'll be channel or flume on the west that'll pick up that water, so we're not going to block any water. It's going to come onto us, we'll convey it through the site into our detention pond, and then out to the low point of the site, which is the southeast corner. So we'll meet all the city's engineering requirements. We'll have to turn in plans on that as well.
So it'll continue to flow, maybe just a little slower.
Correct. So, well, not slower. We'll pick it up at our property line. We'll detain it on our site, so where it flows out of our site will not increase the flow from historic. But we will accept all the water from the west, from the neighboring properties. We won't block any of that.
Does that answer your concern?
Yes, it kind of did, but is it going to be a slough, or, I mean, a sluice or what?
What I think we're looking at is a concrete flume on that north leg on the west side of that'll pick it up, it'll bring it south, kind of to where that bend in the side is, and then take it east onto our street. And then on the west side of the site, there's some zoned commercial property to the west of us. There'll be a small swale there that'll discharge into a concrete flume, bring it onto our street. And all of that comes to our detention pond, which will be in that common area on the southeast.
See, my house is right up there, just to the left of R1.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
That, my main concern is it going to be a pretty good size one? Because there's a lot of water.
And it actually is, I think that we're looking at either a concrete flume or a small concrete channel through there, but we looked at all the offsite water that comes through there. And so we'll turn in those calculations to the city and meet their requirements.
Mr. Spencer, if you want to provide Mr. Johnson with your contact information, that way if he has questions and concerns as this goes along, he'll have a way to contact you. Commissioners?
I move approval of the application.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 8. Would you cast your votes, please? Oh. It is approved.
Item number 9 is case C-6952, the final plat of Council Ridge, Phase 3.
Is the applicant present? Mr. Rollins? Would you use your name and address for the record, please?
Steve Rollins, Arc Engineering Consultants, 135 Deer Creek Road in Edmond, representing the applicant. We've got 59 more single-family lots, and this will finish out the Council Ridge single-family development. We're in agreement with all the TEs in regards to a protest letter that we received from our neighbor to the west, Mr. Collins. We did have some issues with some mud getting on him at the beginning of Phase 2, and the contractor got that all taken care of and cleaned up back to the way it was. We modified our erosion and sediment control plan to slow down the water and redirect some of it temporarily. So we didn't hear from Mr. Collins or his attorney for the rest of Phase 2 until today. So I think we got everything taken care of, like I said. So with that, I would ask for your approval.
Does Mr. Collins have your contact information?
Yes, and I've met with him out there before, shortly after all that happened, and we discussed what we would do to get it cleaned up and taken care of at that time. So,
Is Mr. Collins present today? Did you want to speak, Mr. Collins?
No, not really.
Okay. You don't have to if you don't want to.
I got questions. Do we face all?
You're fine, right here. Right there. Give us your name and address for the record.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of mud. I mean, it wasn't a little bit. But they didn't put the mud fences up. I could not get a hold of people at your company. They wouldn't return my calls, even to find out who you guys were. For a neophyte, it's hard to do. So we had to hire a lawyer. Yeah. But anyway, I hope I didn't insult anybody back here. But anyway, yeah,
Used to it.
we finally got it straightened out. I worked with Andy Tolles, but he's not with you anymore. Once we got it set, I could call Andy, and he would come and fix things. But he's not with you anymore, right?
He is not. He's retired now. I'd be happy to give you my card, and that way you've got it. You can call me
Well,
anytime.
I need an Andy.
They have another Andy now. He is fantastic.
Okay, but I need an
He'll get you
Andy that
taken
I
care
can
of.
call, and he's not going to not answer his phone. Okay, and the big issue I have is you're extending the street, and you can see up there my driveway, which is a half a mile long, dips down, and right now, you're bringing water and silt, and I'm silting in down there, okay? I don't know how much dirt you're going to move, but the deal is that I see all that water's picking up speed, and are you going to retain any of that? And I know on the other side, you have a V-ditch, and you have a situation where you have the water delayed before you go on with it, right?
There will be a temporary sediment control pond there that will catch water, detain it somewhat, and then allow a lot of the dirt particles to settle out.
I never understood this. You had a big hole there anyway because it did a mining thing, right?
Yes.
And right now, I get a lot of silt. I never got this kind of water before, when it was farmland. But if you guys are moving dirt and we have a bad rain or something, I see a total mudslide down there.
We will put
But you're not going to
measures into
do it
place to take care of that.
Why do you say temporary?
We do not have plans to put a permanent detention pond there next to your property. We have one there in the center of the property.
Gentlemen, if you could, you need to direct your comments to the commission and not to one another. Be helpful to us.
Okay. I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there?
Well, I just asked that you basically express your concerns to the commission.
The real question here is whether you're opposed to the approval of this application. Whether you're opposed to the approval of the application.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to what they're doing. I'm opposed that I can't that's the only access I have to our home.
So he will have to meet the city's requirements for the drainage and detention and so forth. Beyond that, we don't really have the capacity to redesign his project for him. If you want to get some contact information from Mr. Rollins so that you can discuss this with him further, I'd be all in favor of that.
Okay, so I'm going to get an Andy Tolles. And what I'm asking is, where's this water going to go? Is it going to come across me?
It does go on to you, yes.
And all the water
And
from
into the creek.
the rest of the development's going to come across me? Because you got a ridge there, and it slopes down.
Again, gentlemen, to us, please.
Okay.
And I don't know the answer to your question.
I'm not a professional at this, obviously, so.
Drainage patterns will follow the historic drainage patterns. Everything that did go to Mr. Collins' property will continue to go that direction.
And so why is he having a problem now when he didn't have a problem before?
I'm not sure.
Do I look at him? I don't know, what?
Like I said,
I have a
I
hard
thought we
time
had it
hearing
taken
anyway,
care
because I see
of
it.
whenever we modified our erosion control plan, and we didn't hear from him or his attorney anymore. I thought we had that taken
So
care of.
is the problem that you were experiencing earlier continuing, or was it resolved?
Is what continuing?
The problem that you were having earlier?
No, at this time?
Yes.
No, but they haven't done, they have all these lots. We had one house that's built 3 years ago, I think, when you guys first, opened up, and they're fine, the neighbors, we never see them. And then they just got finished building two more, okay? And now they're selling, the first one, I think, was the Sooner people, and they did they kept everything clean. But the next two, I think they're selling to everybody, so you don't know who you're getting there.
So Okay. Is it a construction problem? Is it the process of construction that's creating this problem, or is it the design of the a project that is of concern to you?
Well,
If I could jump in, I think my understanding of the issue is not that water drains across your property. It's that silt was coming across your property.
silt and too much water, I mean, it should be, it seems to me so easy to restrict it, you know, just with a pipe saying that you fill up and you don't allow it to go through.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we do one of two things. Either we continue this case until January the 11th so that you can get together with Mr. Collins and see if you can resolve whatever issues it is that he's having. Or if it's something that you think you can address with him right now, we'll place this item at the end of the docket and we'll come back to you. Which would you prefer?
Well, I would prefer neither. I would prefer we just vote it and approve it, but I think Mr. Collins is addressing construction issues that can be handled on the plans during construction. I don't think it's a layout issue or an issue that has to do with the final plat. But I would.
I tend to agree. I think we're almost litigating an issue between two private properties.
We're not litigating anything.
I understand, but what we should be concerned about is whether or not what's before us, which is the final plat here, if it meets the regulations and requirements.
And that's my question, whether the issues that Mr. Collins is having and that he has brought to our attention are issues that have to do with the design and layout of the plat, or whether they're construction issues. It's not clear to me. You think it's the latter?
Maybe.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me just a moment. Come forward, please, and give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Marlo Collins. I'm his wife.
Hello.
Hi. What I'm seeing here is a difference. You know, I'm understanding. We're not against the development. What we're against is when they change the drainage, which is we have 160 acres there, and the drainage does flood one of the creeks, which is a major access to our home. When the silt comes into the creek, obviously it'll be flooded if it rains, and it will back it up all the way to 164th. We're in those two little X's down there, and, well, it's an X, it's a rectangle and a square. That's us, but there's a road that goes a half a mile through, we go through a creek area, which it floods. When the silt comes in there, the whole thing's going to back up, right? Everything will back up on that, and it's very difficult to get through. We're just asking if he would go ahead and make sure there's a way to kind of divert that so our creeks are not going to re-silt up.
We will prevent silt from getting onto their property. That's what we have to do. So
There's a bunch of it that's coming back on since you all started. So that's where our concern is. If it gets 10 more houses and all this other stuff, it's going to get worse. And it's virtually impassable when all that comes back up when it floods.
So I guess what I'm hearing is you're asking for assurances, he's giving you assurances, you're not satisfied with that.
Well, we have silt, and it does back up, and we can't get to our house.
That sounds like a problem for your lawyers. So
that's why we had to contact the lawyer.
Okay.
Okay. So, but that's what we're just
in terms of our reason for being here.
Protect us from being flooded out of our home.
Well, the reason that we're here is to require that the project meet the city's standards and regulations.
Certainly, the city would not want us to be flooded out.
Absolutely.
Madam Chairwoman,
Right.
in the staff report, it says that a flood and drainage study will be required to establish finished floor elevations, common lot areas, et cetera. The study must be reviewed and approved by the Public Works Department. Is that where this will be addressed?
It should.
Okay.
It should.
And then it goes on in the next part about plans for drainage improvements must be submitted, things like that. So can we leave that to the Public Works Department to determine these flood issues that I don't know that any of us
We ought to
have
be
that?
able to
Okay.
do that, yes. That ought to be something that is resolved through the city's approval process.
And that's you guys.
No, not exactly.
I thought it would be you guys.
That is something that the city's more technical engineering type people will deal with. It's not something that we can decide here today.
Because when this creek floods, when the silt in there, when it backs up, it floods 164th, making it impassable. And that is a very, very busy road right now.
Come and help us. Come and help us.
So, that's all I'm
So,
going to say.
did we,
How do we need to deal with what the question that they had before us today? Is it going to be resolved through the process of approval?
Curtis Liggins with Public Works. There's a process for them to deal with the
Can I look at
NPDES
it?
people.
Excuse me.
oh, okay.
Stormwater quality people where they can report the complaints about silt. So if that's their issue, it seems like that's the only issue they're speaking of. If you'll come outside with me, I'll give you the information how to contact them. They should be able to work it out between the stormwater
Right.
quality and Mr. Rollins
Thank you, Curtis.
in due time. Thank you. Is that okay, sir?
Here is the person you need to speak to, right here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners?
If I'm understanding that correctly, back to my question, we can approve this and trust that the Public Works Department will deal with all these issues? Okay.
Yes.
Great. I will move for approval. That's all.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 9. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item number 10 is PC 10510 to rezone 12321 Southeast 44th from AA to RA.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Dwight Butler with Anchor Engineering for the applicant. I have communicated with Mr. Highsmith and do agree to a 60% tree preservation on the site. I will handle that on a plat note, which will come up in item number 11.
Well, that was the only question I had. Commissioners? Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this item?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 10. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you very much.
On item
On
11?
item 11, once again, I will add a plat note to the final plat assuring the 60% preservation of existing trees.
And for the record, that's case C6951, the final plat of Willard Acres.
%, is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners?
Is that all just on that west side? That's
I beg
the
your pardon?
60%, are you going to cover that all on that west side?
Well, it'll be up to each individual home.
Okay.
The intent on this is only to cut out the area necessary to build the homes and garages.
Okay, yeah,
and
so
such.
all the trees will be left on the...
Yes, sir. We're not going to do a total, we're not even building a street. This should be very, very well preserved.
I'll move for approval.
Is there anyone else present who want to be heard on this matter? No?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you very much.
Item 12 is C6954, the final plat of Cobblestone Office Park Phase 2.
My name's Jason Emmett. I'm with Cedar Creek Consulting, 5400 North Grand Boulevard. I'm here today to represent the client. The goal in this is to ask for your approval for a final plat to replat Lot 2 of Phase 1. The intent is to, you can see the street coming, or the private street coming off of Council Road. The intent of all of this is to continue the street through the development and connect to 122nd Street and create 7 individual lots for a commercial office development.
There was a couple of questions in the staff report that I think just dealt with the fact that there wasn't, at least I don't have one, a site plan that shows where your street's going to go in those lots.
Right. Do you have the plat that you can pull up? Yeah, I talked to Jared about this. Initially in the report, the aerial that was used was an old aerial and did not show the new dentist office in the northeast corner there with the private street coming through. The intent is to connect to that private street and loop around all the way back to 122nd. And if we can get to the, I've got a board. Do you want me to? The intent is to connect to the road that's there right now and come around and just connect down here to 122nd Street.
That seems to address one of the comments of concern from
There
staff.
was one TE item that was in regards to some kind of cul-de-sac for the development. Again, that was because of the old aerial. They did not see that the street had already been connected to council.
I do have someone who's signed up to speak on this matter, Leslie Owens. Would you come forward, please? Give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Leslie Owens, and I have a house. If you see, the Sonic is at 122nd and Council. The dentist office is right by that street, and our house is just right by the dentist office. And so you see the cul-de-sac, and our house is directly in between the cul-de-sac and the dentist office. I'm here actually in support. So we're in Ward 8. The owners of the property have been good neighbors, and they've actually reached out to the neighborhood and had an open house, and so they've been inviting to our residents. I've actually, my husband and I lease offices down 122nd, and we've actually seen the property, and we may even put a gate through the fence to even walk to the office every day if we do get property. So as far as interactions with the property owners, we do have some positive comments to say, so I'm just here to lend support. So the interactions we've had both as business owners and seeing the property and living there as residents have been positive. So I don't know how often you get that, and having been on the side that you are in public service in Moore Acres, it's kind of a rarity, so I thought I'd show up.
Well, we appreciate that. Commissioners?
If there's no further discussion, I'll move approval of the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 12. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Item 13 is case C-6944, the final plat of Rivendell, Section 13.
Good afternoon, Tim Johnson, here on behalf of the applicant. Sorry. You're familiar with the Rivendell plat on the south side of town. This is what's shaded there in light is the preliminary plat that has been approved already, the revised preliminary plat. What's in dark green is this section. And I did meet with the fire marshal's office as part of the preliminary plat, and he did approve the roundabout as 2 points of ingress and egress, because there's a TE on there, and that information must not have got passed on to Jared. So we agreed to all the other technical evaluation comments, and we even asked for your approval.
Explain that to me, the 2 points of ingress and egress from roundabout.
Well, it's like a divided road right here.
Right.
So the roundabout could be driven around this side or this side. And so the fire marshal's office is okay with this phase, using the roundabout as the 2 points of ingress and egress to get back here. This is under 30 lots on this side, but it's over 30 by going into that side. And then once the preliminary plat's completed, or the final plats are all completed, it meets all the criteria.
Okay. Commissioners?
Do we need a variance? Are you saying you don't need the variance now, Tim? Or do you do need it?
I would say that we don't need it.
I didn't.
Okay. Did you hear that? JJ says we do need the variance.
We do?
The fire marshal doesn't object.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
So is that different than the technical evaluation that's provided in the staff report? So is the fire marshal one issue and this is a secondary issue? I'm guessing dealing with the subdivision regs or something? I mean, what is the?
The regulation is anything over 30 lots requires.
Okay.
Vary it to 30.
Fingers.
Okay.
So, is there anybody else present who wishes to be heard on this matter today? Commissioners?
I assume if the fire marshal is back there and he felt that he was not in approval of this, he would come forward. So I'm assuming that we're good to go on this.
So I need a motion on the variance.
I move the variance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to the variance on item number 13. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
I move approval of the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 13. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 14 was continued to January 11th. Item 15 is case SPUD 1022 to rezone 1708 Northeast 23rd Street from R1 and C4 to SPUD 1022.
Again, Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicants. This is a project that is a reutilization of some existing buildings on Northeast 23rd Street. It's been the focus of a lot of discussion with some help funding from the city to make this project work, and working with Okuro and the Alliance and with the developers. So work has started on the building on the west side of North Rhode Island, and it'll be redone, and they've got a tenant. Oklahoma City Clinic's going to move there, and so they're hurrying up to meet their timeline. We've been to the Traffic Commission and received partial approval on some 90-degree parking on street. We're going back next Monday to receive we had to change the 90-degree to angled on Rhode Island because of our setback width is too narrow. So we've done that. We're going back Monday for that, hopefully for that approval. So what you see on the site plan is the two separate buildings. On Tract 1, the portion of that building will be torn down, creating the pedestrian walkway to serve the parking lot in the back to the front of the stores. And then, of course, the parking necessary to provide for the use of this as a retail business. Right before the meeting, Councilman Cooper, or Commissioner Cooper, spoke with me and had some concerns about a couple of the uses. And I've talked to the client, and it's specifically the use unit for custom manufacturing and the use unit for retail. I apologize, I had my finger on it. Repair services consumer. And the item we specifically have in here is excluding automotive, but the developer would like to keep these two uses in here, but we will restrict them to the types of uses that I think you want to see here, and that is, so like custom manufacturing could be an artist frame shop or somebody making woodworking things to sell, a small retailer. The repair services could be also like a clock repair or watch repair, and so they want to keep those smaller uses in there, but we can restrict any kind of heavy use out of that. And
Tim, how would you do that? How are you proposing to do that?
we've done this before with the staff. We'll come back and modify the repair services consumer and say for uses such as a watch repair, clock repair.
You just do it by text, actually, in the PUD itself, SPUD itself.
Okay.
And I'm agreeable to that and good with that. If we can restrict those, my concern was the larger.
Right. And I understand that.
I'm good with that then.
And yeah,
because this is a good project, and it's already an improvement with what has been done up to this point, and so and only demolition is an improvement. So thank you. So I'm in agreement if you can restrict those uses, then that's fine with me.
And we'll get it back to
can-
the staff before it goes to city council.
Okay, okay.
I have one question, and it's a question that I often have with respect to projects like this. You're talking about the use of existing structures and you have a variety of uses, including, commercial uses. So what is there in here that keeps somebody 10 years from now from demolishing the whole thing and putting up a 7-Eleven?
Well, the zoning doesn't permit a 7-Eleven. It has, it wouldn't, I mean, a 7-Eleven it has a convenience store, but no gasoline permitted.
Okay. So something a little less than a 7-Eleven. You get the idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the tenants or the owners are local developers that that have done a lot of reuse structures in town, and their intent is to keep it and get it occupied.
So, and I'm not trying to beat on you here. I'm really not. My point is really that there's nothing in here that requires that or restricts that, and it may be because it's just not, I won't say possible, but not practical to do that. It's not, we don't have a good way to do it.
Right. What if it burnt down?
Is this a, well, and I mean, that's a point, Did I read that this is a tax increment project? Is there something about that process that would impede that possibility?
I'm not positive. Might have to ask your lawyer.
No, that's strictly a financing mechanism.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter today? Commissioners, comments, questions, a motion?
I move for adoption of application.
Second.
And don't interpret any of that to be anything other than, I think this is a great project, and I'm thrilled, so.
Did I also need to say with those restrictions for...
modifying the two-use units?
With those modifications.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve item number 15 with the additions discussed. It is approved.
Thank you very much.
And item 16 is associated with this application. It's a CE 966 to close 52 feet of the north half of the alley located behind the property.
Again, Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. So this is the tract that is west of Rhode Island, and there's this little piece of alley that has not been vacated. This has been vacated. This north-south has not been vacated, but we need to vacate our half of the alley to allow for ingress and egress out of that corner of the building.
Questions? Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on that issue? No? Commissioners?
Move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
It is approved.
Item 17 is case SPUD 1025 to rezone 17608 Northwestern Avenue from C3, PUD 132, and PUD 622 to SPUD 1025.
Is the applicant present? Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you. My name is Marcus Crawford. I'm at 610 Northwest 178th. Request to rezone for a simplified plan unit development from the community commercial and the additional PUDs already in place that actually are for commercial and in church use. You can see it's a landlocked property that we're simply wanting to put 2 personal homes on. That we ask you to grant that request.
Are you in acceptance of the technical evaluation?
Yeah, and looking through those, just a quick overview. We had originally put it into an RA base based on the use that we didn't want to ever portray that we were going to go to an R1 and develop it to be residential was the reason for the RA base, but the city has proposed moving to an R1. We're okay with that. We definitely have no plan to graze any trees other than some red cedars that are in the way where we're going to put our homes. And what else was on there? But yes, I think Commissioner Highsmith, we had exchanged an email saying that, yes, we're in agreement on that.
there anybody else here who wants to be heard on this matter today? Commissioners?
If you are in agreement with the TEs, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We move for adoption?
Yeah, sorry, first time at the mic, had to understand what a TE was there, yes.
I'm hesitant to even ask this question, but I'm going to anyway. Why are we suggesting that they bring it to R1 instead of RA? What is the advantage to us about that?
It's just more consistent with what the zoning is in the area. It's all R1 all around it. It couldn't be developed as R1. The way that the frontage is, it would have to come in and be rezoned again and then platted.
So is it something about the development regulations that pertain to R1 that are different that we prefer? Or, it really is just we want the map to all be the same color?
More consistent.
Okay. Commissioners, I have a motion and a second to approve, don't I? Item number 17. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 18 is ABC 908 for an ABC3 overlay of the BC District located at 409 East California Avenue.
Hello, would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Michelle Upton, 3913 Smiling Hill Circle in Edmond.
And what is it you're asking for today?
We are wanting to put in that little top area up there in the drawing a lounge. I know it's listed as a club because we're not going to have food, but it's actually more just a bar lounge, very relaxed, chill kind of area. It sits right between IHOP and the Chevy Event Center in Bricktown.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of the applicant? Is there anybody else here who wants to be heard on this matter? Do I have a motion?
Well, my concern is really with the design, and I think that, I guess fire will have an opportunity to look at this, but in terms of the design, there are several rooms inside that seem to be
The back half of the
fire
building,
traps.
all those rooms and stuff, will actually be a zoning for a different setting. We're just doing that first little 1,000 square foot all the way on the left there as the seating. The other side of stuff will actually be an escape game, and we've talked to the fire marshal on it, but that'll be us getting zoned for that. You'll see me next month.
Okay.
But yeah, so that part, like I said, that is separate. What we, in the drawing, it should have been just highlighted for that 1,000 square foot in the beginning of it. The rest will not be, we're not asking to be zoned for the alcohol.
So your question is like a fire marshal kind of question?
Right, and I think they'll look at it with the application as it comes through, but that is really a major concern.
Just
of
has to do
mine.
with how fast you can
Just
get out of the
looking at-
building?
yes. And I'm sure they'll work through what the floor plan looks like at that point, but it is certainly good to see you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had some issues. I broke my hand. My assistant had a baby. It's been a party. So we missed a lot of meetings. But yeah, it's just that front half that we're wanting for the alcohol zoning. The other half we will be making, we're doing an escape game. We already have one up north and we're moving one in here. And so we have discussed with the fire marshal all of that stuff. So hopefully there should be no problems as we move forward with that zoning.
Anyone else?
Is there anybody else who wants to be heard on this matter? Commissioner?
Move for adoption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 18. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 19 is PUD 1665 to rezone 8300 Broadway Extension from R1 to PUD 1665.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson on behalf of the applicant. And Commissioner Highsmith, I owe you an apology. I failed to send you a copy of this. I think you asked me for it, and I just failed to send it to you. It didn't dawn on me until just now. So this is, we were here a couple of years ago on the property north of this and zoned it into the PUD, of which we are, with this plan, trying to extend those same uses south. This tract of land was originally owned by American Fidelity, and then it was sold to American Energy Company, and they were getting ready to rezone that. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so American Fidelity has purchased this back.
to square up their tract. And so in the overall picture, this tract has already been zoned into the PUD with the same uses that we're proposing to be combined here. And then this is a blow-up version of that. So this is going to be a mixed-use office entertainment park with corporate offices. There's a future corporate office proposed here that's under design. These are spec offices, and this is the theater that's coming to town that'll be located there. So that's already, the shaded area is already zoned. So what we're asking for is just basically to extend this PUD down into this property where 82nd Street is platted.
Tim, when was the north side of that PUD, when was it approved?
2 to 3 years ago.
Okay. And all of the same uses that were in the first approved PUD are what are replicated here?
Yes, sir.
Are there additional uses here that were not in the?
No, sir.
Okay.
Is the parking represented on these, the amount of service parking, is that representative of the city minimums?
Yes. And that's a good point that I want to bring up. So a lot of what you see is the parking that is pushed into the center of this is a placeholder. If at some time more offices want to come here, we're planning out, the reason why it's all squared up the way it is would be to allow for structure parking to be added and then other buildings be built.
It's a breathtaking amount of parking.
Agreed.
And so I look forward to when we can be more aggressive on our minimums.
The other thing that's important to this site as well is obviously we have the ponds on the north end. They're a very attractive feature, the restaurants and hotel that will be backing up to the ponds. But we're also creating this pedestrian pathway through the project. It'll be a very nicely done, wide pedestrian pathway that goes all the way through the development, jogs over and comes all the way to the lake, where it would run center up with the dividing dam between the two ponds. So that's a big feature to, so that people in this office can utilize the restaurants and walk to them. So that's also included. Tim, kind of in ACE's, Commissioner Highsmith's deal on the parking, this would also anticipate for future development for office space or hotel or yes, whatever, right? Right. So obviously the image is phase one parking, if we just do these two buildings, stops here. And then depending on what goes on these tracks, the remaining parking would be done. This is just an illustration. And then this corporate office is anticipated to be 6 to 7 stories high and with parking surrounding it.
Talk to me a little bit about the signage. It's a little unclear to me, even after reviewing the staff report, how many signs we're talking about and what size they are. And
well, we can, like I said, we continued the signage that was permitted in the original PUD. Let me find it.
does that mean we're just doubling the signage that was?
No, it's based on the frontage. We're not doubling our frontage.
So, if I could, it looks like your 20-foot pole sign, development signs, the rest are secondary signs that are 8 feet and 100.
That's correct.
Right? So we got a 20 feet out on the main development, out on the extension there. And
but it won't be a pole sign.
Yeah.
I knew that. It's a important monument sign. Okay. I mean, that's as far as I'm concerned. I do agree with Ace's comment with respect of parking. I mean, I see other developments in other communities that are similar uses that I think are more functional because of the way they do their parking in some ways, but that's not for us right now. Don't want to bring that into the conversation, but
I'm glad Mr. Hensley's happy, but I'd like to talk about signage.
Okay.
How many signs are we really talking about here?
I've lost that page again.
So the, I don't know if I can tell you the exact number. I think Mark, can you help me with this? I apologize. I don't think we specified a max number of signs.
Mark Zitzat with Johnson & Associates. On the signs, there were not a max put in, partially because we don't know how many additional buildings will be put in and what the future office tract develops as. So, again, we copied the PUD to the north. With the 20-foot sign fronting Broadway, there's probably a number of signs that we can put a limit on, but at this point, there's not, because we don't know how those tracks are going to be broken up where the surface parking is currently.
No, he's really not. So are we going to look at that again later when we do specific plan, or?
We'll bring a sign package in when we come in with our specific site plan.
I mean, it says a sign package shall be required at the time of submittal of a specific plan.
Okay.
And that'll be coming soon.
Okay.
Sorry I wasn't more help.
Is there anyone else here today who wants to be heard on this matter? No? Commissioners?
Move the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 19. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
It's approved.
Item 20 is PUD 1666 to rezone 601 North Check Hall Road from PUD 1636 to PUD 1666.
Good afternoon. Mark Grubbs on behalf of the applicant. What you have before you today is a slightly modified PUD application that this commission saw earlier this year. The only modification to this PUD is the addition of the hotel use. The current owner recently had a developer come in with 2 Marriott products that he wanted to put in this location. He's been pre-approved for those, so we are coming before you to ask for your approval. As for the TEs, T number 1 was on the original PUD and was deleted. We did talk to traffic, and he has agreed to delete this TE again. We agreed to his request for the deletion of that TE. We agreed to the remainder of the TEs, and we'll ask for your approval.
Just to be really, really clear, the one and only difference between this and the PUD that we approved previously is the addition of the hotel.
Yes.
Is there anybody else here who wants to be heard on this? Commissioners who have questions or comments or?
In terms of the technical evaluations, particularly number 3 as it relates to the fencing, the residential abutment there, I would encourage you, as it relates to that fencing, that it be compatible with the other fencing in that residential area, mainly stockade, not chain link, or something lesser than stockade. Are there any other issues in those TEs that you have any questions about? You're in agreement with the others?
We agree with the TEs.
Good.
Do you have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 20. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
Will somebody turn off, please, Commissioner Coopers? Thank you.
Item 21 is PUD 1660 to rezone 8601 Southwest 29th Street from R1 to PUD 1660.
Mr. Dillon?
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Craft & Toll, representing the applicant. I also have Mr. Robert Kraut and Lawson Kraut, the applicants, with me today in case you have any questions of them. This is an application that we're excited to present to you today. It is a PUD, and it allows for a large lot gated residential community on 88.5 acres that lies generally at the northeast corner of Southwest 29th and County Line Road. The site is currently zoned R1, and it actually is zoned R1 on all 4 sides. The land to the north and to the south are vacant. There is a subdivision, as you can see on your map, to the west. Both, there's actually 2, Westbrook and Morgan Creek, both of which they have about 10,000 square foot average on a lot, so they're fairly large sized lots in those subdivisions. We're abutted on the east side by Coventry Manor. That subdivision has half-acre lots with water, but they're private sewer systems. At the time that one was developed, that site, nor did our site, have sanitary sewer available. But in the last year and a half, I've been involved in projects that we've brought a sewer line from 15th Street all the way down, and it currently sits about 1,500 feet to the northeast of this site. So we will be extending that sewer to obviously provide sewer service to our development. As far as our development plan goes, this one's a little bit different. It's kind of a hybrid between a rural acreage development and kind of your standard urban single-family addition. So with that being the case, we decided that as opposed to trying to develop under the R1 regulations, we'd bring it to you as a PUD to spell it out and to list all the conditions and go that route. As far as the PUD document, some of the things that you will find in there, we've obviously limited and given your architectural standard of 70%, 30% that you all are familiar with. We've established a maximum density of 1.25 dwelling units per acre. So the math on that equates to 110 lots. I think if you look on the master development plan and the preliminary plat that's a companion item, you'll see that there's about 106. But it's about 1.2 in reality, but we put 1.25 in the PUD document. As far as minimum lot size, we've established that is 15,000 feet in the PUD. If you look at ours, we're averaging a little over a half acre with all of our lots. The lot width, we've got 90 feet minimum. We did allow for 75 feet on cul-de-sac lots. We're utilizing 30-foot front setbacks. We've reduced that to 25 on cul-de-sac lots. We obviously have committed in the PUD that we're servicing the addition with both water and sewer, so we have full utilities. We've written in there and allowed for it to be a gated community so that the streets will be private, they'll be owned, and they'll be maintained by the HOA. In addition to that, we've written in that we will have a minimum of 15 acres of common area, and you can see by our drawing that we've really tried to work our design. We've already had an environmental scientist actually delineate the site so that we know where the streams are at. We've identified the wetlands, and so we're doing our best to obviously preserve all of that, but not only preserve it, but to utilize it as amenity as well. We wanted to put a walking trail around the pond and really kind of focus on that being just an environmentally sensitive area and an amenity for the neighborhood. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. It's a project and a type of development that we have experience with. Within the last few years, we've completed 2 subdivisions just south of here. They're actually in the town of Mustang that are very similar. In fact, one of them is almost identical, and they have been extremely successful. They've been really great developments. My client does an amazing job on his development, so we're excited to have the potential to do that development on this site. I think as far as the PUD goes, there were 3 TEs of which we've addressed. I might also mention, though, that one of the things that I kind of skipped over, the PUD, the base zoning is for RA, which is the rural agricultural residential. And the primary reason that we're doing that is because we are proposing to have a rural type street standard. So we're having a 24-foot street, 5-foot stabilized shoulders, utilizing open swales, bar ditches, which we feel like is a lot more environmentally friendly nowadays, allows for infiltration, some filtration, and some things for the runoff water. So we're utilizing that standard, but in addition, we're also adding to that a ribbon curb. And a ribbon curb is basically just, it's kind of, if you can picture a curb and gutter without the curb and just the gutter, it's just a flat concrete portion, but it really services 2 purposes. One, it really aesthetically adds to it because instead of having an edge that kind of meanders, it gives it a square edge, has a nice border and liner, so it looks really good, but then it really helps to maintain the street because if you don't have some sort of a blocker on the edge of asphalt, it tends to ravel and starts looking bad and your street deteriorates. So that's the purpose. So we're giving it a really good standard. And again, I think there was 3 TEs that we're in agreement with. We've already provided your staff with the new PUD that addresses those things, and be happy to answer any questions, and we ask for your approval.
Commissioners, have any comments or questions for Mr. Dillon? I have someone who's signed up to be heard actually on the next item. And since we sometimes find ourselves in a position where people come to us with complaints and we tell them they should have been here earlier, I'm going to ask the representative for the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association whether there are comments about the zoning that they wish to make.
Francis Henry, 12136.
Would you pull the microphone down a little bit, please?
12136 Woodland Hills Drive. I'm the HOA president.
I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Francis Henry.
Thank you. Did you have a comment you wanted to share with us about this?
Well, it's not so much that we're opposed or anything. We have a lot of concerns because, as I don't know if you've got that map up there, where the property in question was Phase 2 of Woodland Hills, and it shows the road which comes, straight through, and it dead end, of course, when we ended Phase 1. And we're concerned about, are they going to make their own ingress, to get in and out, or are they going to try to come through our road? Because it, would be a problem. We are just a small little community in Phase 1 of 31 homes. And it's, this property is backing right up to one of the homes, which is the home of one of our secretaries. So we're just real concerned about an entrance in and out.
Okay.
Are they going to try to continue as Phase 2 with our road?
That really is a plating question, so we're going to wait until we get there to talk about that.
Okay.
We might start with making sure it's the right application.
Yeah. I don't see Woodland Hills on
I
that
think
map.
there's a chance it's
Oh,
wrong
wait.
application.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even pick up on that.
This one's not close to
We'll sort you out. Okay. So do we have any comments or questions to Mr. Gillen about his zoning request? No? Then do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I make the motion to accept this application.
Second.
I'll take that as a motion and a second to approve item number 21. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
And item 22 is the associated plat, case C-6938, preliminary plat of Anton's Landing.
Again, for the record, Kendall Dillon with Crafton Tall. And again, I think we've talked about most of the nuts and bolts about it, but it is 106 lots. It's about 1.2 dwelling units per acre. They average half acre. I think we have 9 TEs, all of them but 2 are just standard TEs. TE number 3, actually TE number 2 is a variance for a street stub. When we initially submitted it, we did not provide a stub to the north. We prefer the cul-de-sac, but we also understand the sensitivity of that particular subdivision regulation. And it's a gated community, so it will be a crash gate, but we will go ahead and provide that stub to the north. So that being the case, we'll meet your subdivision regulations, and we won't need that variance.
So the representation that you have there is an accurate one.
This is the accurate one that I brought. Your staff report will reflect the cul-de-sac and not the street stub. But this is the way that we will build it, with the street stub to the north.
But no accident, crash gate.
It's a gated community, so I think that's all we can do. So that, I think, addresses TE number 3, or TE number 2. And then TE number 3, obviously what we're addressing there is we would like to build the 24-foot street instead of the 26-foot street. Your subdivision regulations allow for a 24-foot street, but in the RA zoning, it's for lots that are 2 acres plus. So I think if you look at the nature of our subdivision and that we're a total of 106 lots, especially you look at the nature of the cul-de-sac one, we've got at most 15 lots on a cul-de-sac, mostly 8 to 10. Our traffic volumes are very low. And then, like I say, we're providing you not only a 24-foot street, but we've got an upgraded section with a stabilized shoulder, the ribbon curb, and those sort of things. So that's the purpose of the variance. And again, it's something that we have experience with. We've got one just down the street that functions incredible. It has a good look. And not only that, but I think that tends to be the trend, a lot that we're seeing in different communities with potentially narrowing left streets. Even your comp plan, I think, has travel lanes in local streets, specifically rural, as probably 10 to 12 feet. So I think we're consistent with that. We've met with the fire marshal's office. They're okay with it. And so we'd ask for your approval on the variance as well as the plat.
I can't resist asking, what is it about this design that you are enamored of? You know, all the cul-de-sacs and the lack of internal connectivity. What is it about that is appealing?
Well, I think if you look at it, and I know that the comp plan recommends to reduce the number of cul-de-sacs. I happen to be one that still kind of favors them. I think if they're designed correctly, they can still function and serve really well. One of the things I think it does do is it does reduce the traffic. And the truth of it is from a marketing standpoint, but also from a livability standpoint, people like less traffic on the street. Now, I know that contradicts a few other discussions, but I think, again, if they're designed right, where you can amply provide fire service, the right radius on the cul-de-sacs for vehicles to turn around, trash trucks and those sort of things, I personally don't see a problem with cul-de-sacs. But what we're trying to achieve is basically we're giving you the feel of an acreage rural estates addition that there's a huge market for and a lot of demand and need, but we're doing it kind of in an urban setting, and we're also providing urban utilities. So it's a great concept. They end up being beautiful neighborhoods. They function incredibly well, and like I say, they just end up being really nice. So that's kind of the concept, is that we provide a spine road through, and then we kind of do the cul-de-sac so that it reduces the amount of traffic. It's a really safe neighborhood. It's gated. It's incredible. It's a great plan, in our opinion.
And emergency services are not concerned about this?
No, I met with the fire marshal's office on Tuesday of this week, and Mike Wilson, and they're fine with it. Like I say, and we meet your access requirements. The only thing would be is just we're asking for a little narrower street, when quite honestly, even in your construction details and your subdivision regulations allow for a 24-foot street. It's just for 2 acres plus so that you get a little bit lower density and a little bit less traffic, but that's exactly what we have.
Is there anybody else here who wants to be heard on this matter today? Commissioners, do we have comments, questions, a motion?
I move for approval.
So, I'm sorry, we do have just one variance now, is that right?
That's correct. The variance to T number 3, which is the connection to the north, we will provide that one. We do not need that. We just need for the 24-foot street.
Okay, so actually I need a motion on the variance
Yes,
to the street width. Okay.
on the variance.
I have a motion and a second on the variance to the street width from 26 to 24.
Correct.
If you'll cast your votes, please. That's approved.
Thank you all.
And a motion on the application.
I move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 22. Cast your votes, please.
Thanks
It's
again.
approved.
Item 23 is PUD 1633 to rezone 11900 North Coltrane Avenue from PUD 58A to PUD 1663.
Good afternoon, Brad Reeves, Crafton Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard. This PUD is for 31 duplex lots on an area that has an existing PUD on it that would allow for a modular home addition, like the ones to the north. It's from 1983, and we feel like that's it's not really conducive with 2017. So we came back through with the duplex lots, as you see here. There are 3 TEs, changing the front building line from 15 off of the private access drives to 20. We agree with that. There is one for a 70% maximum lot coverage. It actually says in there that we didn't have one. We have one on, let's see, it was section 9. We're actually at 65%. So, and then there's deleting 2 sections about a specific plan, which we're fine with as well.
So are you saying you do not want to meet TE number 2?
Well, we can change that to 70. That's fine.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, as to 3?
We can remove those.
Okay. I had a couple of questions about this. Do I read the staff report correctly that you're requiring only one parking place per unit, and that can be allowed as street parking?
Yeah, these plan to have driveways. I'm not sure why that's in there. There's drives on these, so we don't plan on any street parking.
So you don't need street parking, but there is only one parking place per unit?
No, we can get, 2 is fine. 2 is fine.
Okay.
When I looked at the design, isn't it the garages,
There's garages.
two-car garage?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that I don't think that needs, that can come out.
Okay. Well, then we will strike it out of there.
I have a question. Are there any common areas? If so, where is the common area?
So the common area, there will be, detention was required. There will be a common area in the north east corner. And technically, the area where the private road easement is also a common area. So anything that won't be a lot will be a common area here.
Can you point those out to me? Because I'm not sure that
It's basically everything where the road is. It's kind of one common area. There was something in your staff report that kind of showed it pretty well. It's basically, yeah, so it's everything that's not a house. Where there's not a duplex on it, everything is a common area. Because of the private street section coming off of.
So is all of that right there is a common area? All of where that corner is?
Yes. Yeah, we're planning on detention over in that corner. And that will be a common area, though, yes.
I'm going to make some qualitative statements on this project just real quick. And I apologize for maybe getting off topic, but I think this development is a bit of a bummer. When I look at the homes with the two-car garage in front, it's like 90% curb cut. I don't know what the quality of these neighborhoods are when you drive through them. I've been in these types of neighborhoods before. We call these homes snout houses, and I think I've made this comment before as well, is that it's hard to tell if people live there or do cars just live there. I hope that in the future we can do better. I hope that we can find ways to raise the quality of the developments in our neighborhoods and provide better places for people to live. That said, I understand that these are totally within boundaries of the development standards that we provide. So that is the total of my comment. But wanted to get that off my chest a little bit.
Okay.
Questions about connectivity and sidewalks and all of that conversation. Tell me what your
So
plan
for
is.
connectivity, our main entrance will be off of Coltrane. There's an existing stub out of the Woodlands Hills addition that the lady spoke about earlier. We'll tie into that. That's not our intended route. It's there. We'll tie into it. It gives us our second point of ingress and egress, but our main entrance will come off of Coltrane. There is that's kind of what I was looking at earlier. That shows basically all the stuff that's not a lot is a common area with this thing. But it's on the preliminary plats on the next one. We're asking for no interior sidewalks. The arterial sidewalk we put in, but we're asking for no interior sidewalks. There's not any in addition to the north. We're not connecting to the south or to the east, so.
Okay, I think we figured out where we are. And again, because we sometimes get past the place where your comments are pertinent, I'm going to ask you to come forward, give us your name and address for the record, and tell us what your concerns are.
Okay, my concerns are, once again, as like he was talking about.
Give us your
tying
name and
into
address for the
I'm
record,
sorry,
please.
Frances Henry, 12136 Woodland Hills Drive.
Thank you.
And I'm representing the Homeowners Association. This property in question was Phase 2 of Woodland Hills, in which we are a modular home, little development, little subdivision. We have 31 homes. And this was to be Phase 2. Of course, it's been sitting idle for a while. And then I was just aware that it was sold. And not that I wanted to present you guys something, but I ended up in the hospital with a heart attack, which is, so don't stress me out today, okay? So, but anyway, we're concerned about the tying into this road, because then if he's doing 31 duplexes, that's 62 more families that are going to put wear and tear on our roads, and we've had a problem getting these roads deemed as city streets because supposedly they're too narrow. I don't know if they are still that way since 1983 when it was first put in, but we'd love to have them as city streets. And we just spent, $12,000 getting one street fixed, and with 62 more families coming through here, are they going to try to be a total different entity than us? Or are we going to still be able to charge them the homeowner dues, which also helps with, the repairs of streets and things like that? We're concerned about if they're not, is there going to be a privacy wall there? Where's their entrance going to be, their ingress and egress? Just a lot of little concerns right there, because we're a small, very, very quiet community, and then they're talking 62 more families coming in.
Did you want to speak to that question of the maintenance of the roadways and so forth?
This is intended to be its own separate entity. Like I said earlier, our main point of ingress and egress will be off of Coltrane, not through their subdivision. Their subdivision actually, we will connect to it. It's there. The stub comes into our property, so I think we're required to connect to it. It does give us our second point for emergency situations, but the main entrance will not be through their addition. You kind of have to wind through to get back to that. It wouldn't be a very quick route if you decided to go that way.
But we do not want it to connect to this. If it's going to be a different entity, it should not be. There should be either a privacy wall built or sound barrier. We're going to have to deal with, I don't know how many months of construction going on. But, no, if it's a different entity, we do not want it tied on. We don't want them coming through that property and destroying streets more if they're not going to be part of, replacing these streets.
So the streets in your area are not private streets, are they?
They'll be private, yes.
They will be. Is it going to be gated?
No, it's just because of the way this is, the private street in the, we can't really meet the city's standard due to the size. City standard would have to do the cul-de-sacs and the eyebrow cul-de-sacs. It would take up the whole area. So it'd be a private street in the common area, which I think is actually something similar to what they have currently.
They pay for it too, right, to maintain? That
Excuse
they pay to maintain?
It would be on
their dues?
It'd be on this homeowners association.
So we have a private development connecting to a city street that's going to go through an existing neighborhood to take access to 122nd.
Our main access is off.
I get that. You want to keep emphasizing main access, so I won't be focused on the fact that you're going to take your private street through this existing city street that's maintained.
I don't think it's a city
I think she was
street.
just saying that they're not maintained by the city.
It's not a city
Right.
street.
We maintain our own streets.
Those are both
That is our
private
private street. We do not want them connecting to it. If they're going to be their own amenity and they're not going to be Woodland
How does this
Hills
even
and pay
work? I
us
don't get
dues, then why should we let them come through our private
Sorry, I
street?
didn't understand that.
Yeah, we're going to have to kind of sort that out. That doesn't make any sense.
No,
JJ?
I don't see that we can. If I was living in a neighborhood that had the duty to maintain their streets, I would not want 62 more houses going into, have access to our private streets that we have a duty to maintain.
Not
That
with some kind of
seems to be
agreement or something.
troublesome. Now, if you need an emergency gate
We can put a crash gate. We'll agree
or
to that.
something like that so that they don't travel up and down there, if you need that for access, that's certainly a second consideration. But I agree with
But there's also
Woodland Hills
another
folk.
street called Holland that backs up to their property, which they could put another exit down there instead of coming through our property.
Well, if we put a crash gate up, they won't be coming down your property. Only people that come through there would be the fire department or the police or emergency vehicles, let me put it that way.
Yeah, I'd like to hear something about how this works when you have private streets that connect to city streets that...
Well, it's not city streets. I was wrong
Well,
about
they're
that.
going to connect to 122nd at some point, and
Yeah, they'll connect to
and
122nd.
obviously theirs do, and
Because
there's
theirs
not
would
a...
be Coltrane,
You
which
don't have a
is-
gate around yours either?
No.
That's-
We just have a gate around our park.
How does that work?
We don't want 62 more, homes coming through there also and wanting to share our park They're not paying homeowner dues to us.
I mean, I have, you know, you have streets that are private in the sense that you're maintaining them and they don't meet city standards, but you clearly don't have the ability to keep the public off of them if they're not gated.
Well,
there's nothing to keep me from driving through their neighborhood. That seems very problematic.
it doesn't to me. I mean,
Come and help us.
We do not have that much traffic coming through. Occasionally we have people come through
Because of where
and look,
you're located, I get that, but just in terms of more general issues, will you come forward, please, and help us out here?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Yeah.
It's a private street to a private street. You and you get to work it out. It's not traffic.
We
Our
don't care
concern
whether
is-
they have private streets?
No, ma'am. Our concern is the sight distance at their driveway on Coltrane.
Okay.
that's a second consideration, right?
But what's inside? It's a private street. It's just like a parking lot.
Let me ask then, if it's being so blunt, then can they put a wall up at the south end of their street?
I don't have a problem with that. It's not my street. It's a private road.
Right.
Fire department might have an issue with that. Crash gate, fire department would want to check with that, but it's private property.
See their property backs up where that red line is, and we have a house right there.
Well, I think, you know, and again, we're talking about both the zoning and the plating, so I don't want to get us, you know, too far off track here, but it seems to me it does matter to the city generally whether they have access to this property for emergency vehicles, if nothing else, and that whether the streets are public or private and whether they connect and whether we can get through them is relevant to the approval process.
If the streets are private, then they are outside my jurisdiction.
Okay.
They are private streets. I just handle what's within the right-of-way, making sure that the traffic within the right-of-way is covered.
So traffic doesn't care.
Traffic does not have a dog in this fight.
Let me
It's not
hear
us.
from emergency services then, please.
Before you leave, I have one quick question. Is the sight distance okay on
We
that?
have not had the driveway marked, so we have not had a chance to check it.
Okay.
Mike Wilson with the Fire Marshal's Office. We've looked at this. The issue of whether they can connect or not is really more of a legal issue with the property ownership and how that frontage, how the existing road has actual frontage apparently on this property. But for our end of things, as long as we have access through there, and that can be through a gate with a Knox lock so that no one can go through there except emergency services, that would be okay with us, because that would still allow us the 2 access points in an emergency.
Okay, so as long as you have crash gate access, you're okay.
Yeah, and whether that be the new development or the existing development, either one, and on our end, could put a gate up and have a Knox lock to keep it secure so that not just everybody uses it.
Okay.
My concern with JJ is this. With this being more than 50 units, they need 2 entrances, right? So if you put up the crash gate, then does that then limit their anticipation or expectation of the...
Well, and as you address that, though, they could put their 2 entrances on their own new development down here.
Right. And that's my question. Right. Because really, anything over 50 units, I guess, you know.
Well, the trigger is 30 lots, but they have 31 lots.
Okay.
As long as it's a crash gate that's accessible to emergency services, that would count as an access point as well as the one on Coltrane. Now, if they were to close it, vacate it, and wall it off, that's a different story. But as long as it's a crash gate.
So why couldn't you put, they put one on Holland, which is on the back side of their property, instead of having to come through Woodland Hills?
Well, I think that what we're focused on at the moment is just the issue of the private street connection, whether it satisfies emergency services, whether we're okay with the idea of it, or whether we want to require them to meet city standards. So the application that we're addressing at the moment specifically has to do with the zoning on the property. Are there other questions, comments, or concerns about that?
Quite sure where
Would you
this
pull
fits
that
in.
down, please?
Yes.
Give us your name and address.
Excuse me, I'm Catherine Zees. I live at 12100 Woodland Hills Drive, and that's Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. My house is the house at the very end to the right of the driveway. My only concern is if there's going to be enough of a privacy fence, because if they are two stories or not, the point is somebody can look right over into my entire backyard, and that is my only concern. And I have two small kids. I just don't want them out there and anybody being able to look in there and see them playing in the backyard.
So the underlying zoning base here is R2, and that would permit two-story, is that right, JJ? 30 feet, is that right? So that is a possibility.
We do have several homes on that side that have children that play in their small, in their backyard, and have a concern of who's going to be ogling the children.
Now, if there's no windows on the back side, which sounds kind of silly, but it makes sense. If there's no windows on the back of the unit, nobody can just look right into the yard, which I would be okay with that. But I just don't want a window right there where somebody can just sit there in their bedroom and look down.
While I understand perfectly that might make you uncomfortable, I live in a neighborhood where there are two-story houses, and people look down into each other's into each other's backyards all the time. I mean, a fence is only going to do so much to solve that problem.
There is the intention of gating or fencing at least the north, west, and south. It's up in the air on the east, but we would fence between this addition and the
Where's the directions you said, what?
north, west, and south. It's right now vacant on the other side. It's wooded. There's actually our detention pond will be over there, but
So your intention is to gate north, west, and south?
to fence, yes.
Fence.
Depends the property line.
Yes.
What about the
Commissioners, do I have comments, questions, concerns, a motion? Where are we?
Have you had a chance to meet with the homeowners association and talk through some of these issues?
No, this is the first I've heard of any issues.
I think my recommendation would be that we continue it, give you a chance to meet with the homeowners association to work through some of these issues, both as it relates to entrance and egress, as it relates to one level, two levels, talk through some of these issues, and bring it back to us at the next meeting.
In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. If they would like to attend, that would be great.
We'd agree to continue to January 11th meeting.
Do I have a motion?
Is the next one the plat that's
I
associated
think
with
it
it?
would make sense to do that,
Makes sense to me,
continue them
too.
both.
Do you guys have any comments on that while I'm here in front of you?
I would love for you guys to maybe look at some similar projects that take a different tact on the design, specifically in location of the garage, how that's handled. I think there's really good examples of duplex units that maybe do a better job of creating community in the neighborhood, and I'd love to see maybe a different approach. Understand if there's been effort and time and money put into this, and that can't happen, but I'd love to see it.
Okay.
So,
Noted.
The only comment that I had made to myself about the preliminary plat had to do with the variance on the interior sidewalk.
Yeah.
So if you'll just speak to us on the issue of your walkability and...
Okay, we can do that.
I have a quick question of the city. When we were talking about the south would have more than 30 lots, so you have to have 2 access points. The north side that's already existing, there's some way that it's okay that it only has 1 access point right now?
83, so that might be good.
And I have a point to send them off to think about is why I ask.
I don't recall it. Maybe it's an older development, maybe because of the age. And I can't really tell what the entry street's doing up there the way the map.
Okay. Okay, and the reason I ask is because as you're in discussions with them, if you come back with us and your concern is that they have determined to gate off their portion and that causes you issues, I would look at it and say, well, that's your issue. You can have 2 access points on your portion. So if they have a private road and they decide they want to gate it off, but your argument is, well, down here we need it for a second point of access, my position would be you can create your own 2 points of access. But I asked my first question because I don't see how the other one only gets that one.
Yeah, what you're saying is correct. I think they do have 1 point, and this was intended to be, like she said, the second phase of this. It never got finished. It's from, the PUD's from 1983. I'm not sure that the 30-lot requirement was there. The second point of access would also help for them if it was also there. So I'm sure they're not required. I'm sure they're grandfathered in, but...
Well, I won't be looking for them to solve your issue on giving you 2 access points. I'll look to you guys to create your own 2 points of access, I guess. Yeah.
Do I have a motion and a second to continue both items? Do I have to vote on them separately? Do I have to vote on them separately? No. To continue items number 23 and 24 until January the 11th.
So moved.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 23 and 24 until January the 11th, 2018. Cast your votes, please. They are continued.
Item 25 was also continued to January 25th. Item 26 is C6936, the preliminary plat of Maple Valley Addition. This does require a variance to the subdivision regulation.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, also with me is Chris Anderson, who is the civil engineer for this project. This is a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision containing 30 lots. It is zoned R1. It is in conformance with various portions of the subdivision regulations. However, there are 2 that require variances. The first that I'll address is addressed in your staff report as TE number, 4. It is the length of cul-de-sac. As you can see, this is what I call shotgun style of neighborhood in that it's long and skinny. There are not many design options that would allow us to have anything other than the length of cul-de-sac that's been presented for you. Perhaps it may be different if my client owns some of the adjoining land, but he doesn't. This is the only piece of land he owns here, so there's no other way to develop the land aside from having the cul-de-sac length that exceeds what the subdivision regulations require. So that's the first variance.
Mr. Box, can I ask you just
Yes,
before
ma'am.
you go on? I'm sorry to have to confess that I have not actually been out to look at this property. Is there something about the adjoining property that would prohibit it from being connected at some point in the future, and or would we want to allow for that possibility?
So I'll address that. On the north, there's a drainage area, so that area is probably impossible or infeasible to have any connection. So to the west, and the reason I brought you a handout, on our argument as to the desire not to have a street stub, when you look at the subdivision regulations, specifically 5.3.1 sub D sub 5, which is what TE number 3 is requesting a variance from, it requires that street stub. However, at the bottom of paragraph 5, it gives the Planning Commission, and I've highlighted this portion, the Planning Commission shall consider land use incompatibilities, amongst other things, when determining whether or not to justify a waiver of this requirement. So if you look at the land surrounding, again, my client doesn't own it. It's all owned primarily by one individual. And the comprehensive plan designates that area as employment reserve. So the second page in this handout is the printout from the comp plan. of the definition of employment reserve, and it reads, employment reserve layer, reserved priority areas within the city for large industrial and business development. Specifically, at the end, the last paragraph says, land uses such as single-family residential, amongst others, are not appropriate within this area. So the basis for our request for the variance is, we don't think we should have, one, it's hard to stub when you have a small neighborhood like this. The economics just aren't there. Two, to stub to an area where the city has designated it for an area that is incompatible with single-family residential, we believe gives rise to justify the variance as outlined in 5.3.1 sub D sub 5.
And are we comfortable with our employment reserve designation here at this location?
This is a preliminary plat, so we really felt like we needed to review it in conformance with the subregs on this. It already had R1 zoning that was allowed within the employment reserve area, so we were really just reviewing it from that standpoint.
I think her question is, are we being the staff, not me, is staff comfortable with the land surrounding this as it is appropriate to be designated as employment reserve?
Yes, that was my question.
And some of the employment reserve areas did have existing residential zoning within them when they were designated as employment reserve, because there was they'd been either zoned a long time ago and had not yet been developed, and they could be developed as something else in the future if someone wanted to come in to develop that as employment. Some sites, like you'll see a case later on the agenda, are coming back to develop as residential. In those cases, we would ask that they be removed from the employment reserve because they're going residential as their zoning permits them to do. In this case, the portion of land to the west of this site is also zoned R1. It could come back in and develop as residential. And so in that case, it would be preferable to have a residential development to residential development provide connectivity between those two uses. But there's no way to know if it's going to come back in as residential, or it could come in as commercial, or it could come in as multifamily under the employment reserve designation.
So my client actually sold years ago the balance of the land that surrounds this to one entity that is in no way a single-family residential developer. They are a very large-scale user, and they own the land that abuts and surrounds the turnpike, my belief is, all the way up to Northwest Expressway. And part of the reason, I believe, my understanding of the employment reserve, when they were looking at it during the process, it was single-owner land, contiguous, in large chunks. And that passes that test here, and then added who owns it, I think, perhaps furthers the idea that it would. And part of this land is Zone AA. So, in theory, if we came in on an R1 application under AA, it would be a denial because it wouldn't be in conformance with the employment reserve.
Okay.
So there are 7 TEs, all of which we agree to, and I have addressed the 2 variances that we do need from the subdivision regulations. I'd be happy to address or answer any other questions that may be present.
Is there anybody else here today who wants to be heard on this matter? Commissioners, we have comments, questions?
I have a quick question. What is between numbers 17 and 18?
It's just another lot, just for counting purposes.
It comes up to 31 then, doesn't it?
Those are only 30 lots.
Because you've skipped the one in the middle.
Oh, maybe a comment.
Chris Anderson, SMC Consulting Engineers, 815 West Main. Sorry, that's a common area for detention pond.
Common area, good.
Oh, it goes to the north. Engineers don't let me count.
Maybe that's the right guy. I don't have any problem with this, frankly. Hard up against this to the west is the turnpike, as I recall. So this is, I think the opportunity for the stub was given up, perhaps maybe with Russellville or the others. But at any rate, I'm fine, and if nobody else has any comments, I'll proceed to make motions on the
2
variances.
motions on variances.
Yeah. I'll move the approval of the variance to TE number 3.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve a variance to TE number 3. Would you cast your votes, please?
And I'll move the variance to TE number 4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve a variance to TE number 4.
I'll move the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 26. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
It is approved.
Item number 27 is PC 10-518 to rezone 10-220 South Sunny Lane Road from AA to I-1.
Is the applicant present? Item number 27, PC 10518, application by SDPS LLC to rezone 10-220 South Sunny Lane Road.
We're close enough to the hill that I would move that we continue this to the January 11 meeting. Is that all right? We've only got 4 or 5 cases that are
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 27 to January 11th. Would you cast your votes, please? It is continued.
Item 28 is PC 10-521 to rezone 11900 West Hefner Road from AA and R1 to R1.
Brad Reeves, Craft and Toll, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a rezoning to kind of take out the agricultural zoning that was intended to be for the rest of the golf course, actually, that you heard about this morning. They decided to scrap that idea to bring the other 9 holes across Hefner, and South Fork Phase 1 and 2 actually took out half of this. This is just the rezoning all of the rest of where the golf course was planned to be a long time ago.
So, now, I was confused, frankly, when I read this, and I may yet be confused. So this has to do with the golf course that we did earlier, right?
So it was basically that they're doing 9 holes.
Right.
They were planned another 18, and it was those.
Oh, okay.
So it was
we're keeping the 9.
The 9's staying in the north. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
but it's basically it was the continuation of those, but they got rid of that whenever they did the South Fork edition.
Okay.
So, but this
All right.
is just cleaning up the rest of the agricultural where those golf courses.
Okay, so we're going to rezone this now to R1 to kind of match the surrounding.
Yeah, there's R1 out where like the houses were planned, but there's you can see the ag.
Okay, I understand.
I've missed it. Where's the current golf course?
It's north, so that's actually right just north of Hefner is where the one is this morning or early in this afternoon was. That was where those were going to be.
It's how many holes now?
What's that?
It's how many holes right now?
They have 18. They're trying to get 9 more. That was the application.
And the 9 were going to be south of Hefner?
Then they were going to do another 9 south.
But now they're going to be north of Hefner?
But they were always going to be. It was just going to be 18 more.
It was going to be total of 36. Now it's only going to be 27?
Yes.
Got it.
But those got taken out. Half of those got taken out when we did the South Fork edition.
There you go. Okay, anybody else? I'm sorry. Anybody who signed up?
Is there anyone else here who wants to be heard on this matter?
Is there immediate future planned for this property?
There's a preliminary plat coming in January.
Okay.
I'll move approve.
Well, hang on one second. Just, so on that south side, there's no houses over there in the R1 right now on the left.
Correct.
But there are on the right.
Yes.
And the people on the right expected what to be immediately to their west previously? Golf course?
No, you can see like where it says R1 intermixed in that with the extra lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it says AA next to that, and it says R1 above that.
Mm-hmm.
We already took care of that section of rezoning.
So there's no house, well?
So there was never intended to be a golf course there after this was done a long time ago.
After the houses were
Those houses
bought
went
the
in.
house.
Yeah, those houses went in with no intention of golf course.
Got it. That's all I was clarifying, because if these people are going to show up tomorrow finding out there's no more golf course and it's...
No, it's done as a regular standard
Got it.
subdivision.
Okay, great.
So you said we're going to see a preliminary plat very soon?
Yeah, we submitted at the same time, but due to the...
One of the issues with respect to this application is that we can't deal with the environmentally sensitive areas through, a straight rezoning, but you'll speak to those in your platting?
Yes. They'll be included in common areas.
Okay.
And that's actually why we split the subdivisions the way they were last time. There's a wetlands that goes through the middle there, so.
Great. Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Second.
The motion is second to approve item number 28. Would you cast your votes, please?
Thank you.
It is approved.
Item number 29 is a comp plan amendment request, 2017-09. This is to request changing the land use typology area from rural low intensity to rural medium intensity in an area located north of Southeast 119th and east of South Anderson Road. And Susan Atkinson from the Planning Department is here to walk you through the staff analysis of that request, with help from Cindy for advancing slides.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So the request is an application to amend the comprehensive plan, changing the land use typology from rural low intensity to rural medium intensity. And this has an associated application noted here on the slide. So this is a map of the subject site in the city's context. It's in the southeast corner of the city, very close to Draper Lake. This map describes the existing conditions in the vicinity of the application. The subject site is outlined in pink. As you can see, it's surrounded by rural low-intensity uses on all sides. The closest medium, which is a little hard to see on the slide, but it's indicated in the more olive shade, is, as you can see, a mile or so to the north and to the west. This is a map describing the existing conditions with regard to land use. So the green, which comprises most of the slide, is parcels that are 5 acres or larger, and parcels that are 5 acres or smaller are shown in brown. This site is adjacent to some, let me start that again. This site is covered with upland forest, so the entire area is notable in terms of having as being an environmentally sensitive area. The upland forest coverage here is very thick and important, and then as you can see in blue, there are also significant riparian areas close by and throughout the area. With regard to major services, the site does not have access to existing Oklahoma City water mains. It is outside a served sewer shed. And with regard to fire service, within the rural response time target, this site is about 3.5 miles away from Fire Station 28. And this is a graphic depiction of the fire station and its location near the site. So the original LUDA assignment of this area was designated rural low for the following reasons. It's outside water and wastewater service areas. Though the site falls within the rural response time targets for Oklahoma City Fire Department, but the prevailing development patterns around the subject property are undeveloped and low-density residential, which is consistent with the rural low-intensity designation. With regard to our findings, so considerations for changing the LUDA, the conditions and provisions for a higher level of service have not changed for the subject site, nor on any of the adjacent sites, to indicate that a change of LUDA is appropriate. The city has no expectations of future urbanization or provision of extending urban infrastructure such as water or sewer to this area. The site is not proximate to either urban low or urban, reserve, thank you, designated areas, as would normally be the case for rural medium LUDAs. The rural low designation provides greater protection to environmentally sensitive areas. As we discussed, this site is significantly forested with upland forest tree coverage. And we do that by limiting residential lot sizes to a minimum of 5 acres. So the recommendation is to deny the application to change the land use typology area from rural low intensity to rural medium intensity. And if there are any questions for staff, I and the planning director will be glad to answer.
I have one question. If we were to, going back to your map that had the little brown boxes that showed areas that were developed with homes on less than 5 acres, if we were to go up to the southern boundary of that closest rural medium LUDA designation, how many of those are developed with properties with less than 5 acres? Do you know?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So on this map here,
yes,
all the brown represents things that are developed in under 5 acres.
Right.
The nearest sort of rural medium designation is a mile to the north, correct?
Well, there is a small area, as you are indicating, just north of the site, and then the larger concentration on southeast 104th.
Right. If we get, we're at 119th. If we go to 104th, we hit rural medium, right?
Right.
How many of that? How much of that area has been developed with properties that are less than 5 acres?
I don't know the answer
Don't know
to that.
Okay.
I do have someone who signed up to be heard on this matter. Is there a Gary Montgomery here? Do you want to speak to us?
My name's Gary Montgomery. I live at 12525 Southeast 119th Street, just a little bit to the east of the property in question now, about rezoning that area. Here I've got, there's a total of 6 of the landowners along that 119th Street north. We all own 5 acres or more, and we want to keep it that way. I bought that property strictly for that reason. That's the reason I bought it, is I had 5 acres and I wasn't going to have an addition quarter of a mile down the street. I wasn't going to have 15 homes, as well as the other people that live here. There's a brand new home on 10 acres that's right next to that property. I'm sure they didn't buy that with the idea of saying, boy, I hope somebody comes in and rezones their property so that I can have an addition next to me. And I mean, as they said, that's not going to bring city service into us. That's not going to bring city water. That's not going to bring city sewage. That's not going to bring any of that. All that's going to cause is more wear and tear on our properties as far as our roads, everything else concerned, which are in bad shape now to begin with. And basically that's, and you're looking at a small school out there as well. I don't know if anybody knows Swartz Elementary, but it's a very small school that's already busting at the seams. So you start making it where people can start building on 1 acre, that's going to increase those schools as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, I didn't sign up to speak. Didn't know it was required. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant and the owner of the property, who's also here with me, and his civil engineer, Dwight Butler. We certainly disagree with staff's interpretation of or their analysis of this. When you look at the green area, I think the comment was made that the majority of it is developed as 5 acres or more. The majority of it is undeveloped, period. The economics of it, frankly, just don't allow you to develop 5-acre lots in a neighborhood. Certainly there are one-off 5-acre tracts that get sold that people live on, but anytime that there's a development that's going to occur, the economics aren't there to develop the 5-acre lots. And I guess I'll reserve a lot of my comments to the PUD portion, but specifically to the upland forest, what my client is willing to do is to agree to a 60% retention of the trees. We've provided a 40-foot buffer on both the east and west side of the application. Both the adjacent property owner to our immediate east and our immediate west are no longer in protest. This was actually filed months and months ago. We withdrew the application, went and worked with the people that own a property adjacent to us. They are now no longer in protest to this application. So we believe that that rural medium is less than a mile away. That is this type of development, the 1 to 2 acre development, is predominantly what you see when you see development. Again, certainly 5 acres can be split off and somebody can build a house, but when you see developments, typically it's just 1 to 2 acre, and there's really not a home for that type of development within our comp plan. It goes from urban, and it really jumps to 2 to 5 acre developments. So we believe that this is certainly appropriate. It's consistent with recent development patterns in the area. So we would ask that you approve our comp plan request.
I might point out that the comp plan does provide for 1 to 2 acre development. There are policies under the rural medium land use typology that when rural medium abuts urban low intensity, that the densities can be increased up to 1 acre. So that would be the circumstance where a higher density rural type development would be appropriate.
Come forward, please. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Tracy Reeves. I'm at 12401 Southeast 119th. And to the gentleman, what he was saying, that it was undeveloped there. Well, on the south side of 119th, it's called school land, where the school owns it, they lease it, so that's why it's undeveloped. That was
Are you
the whole
referring to,
point
is
of
it Oklahoma School Land Commission property?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Is that right? Is it land commission
Yes,
stuff?
that is correct. So all of that on the south side is school land, and so that's why that is undeveloped. The rest of it, there's only 20 acres, I think, that's left after the gentleman has purchased the 14, whatever. So the rest of them have over at least 5 acres or more.
Thank you.
Sorry, how large is that school land commission area there south? Do you know how many? 360? Okay.
So that's Commissioner of the Land Office land. It can't be developed. They just have to get the approval of the Commissioners of the Land Office. I mean, it doesn't, that's reserved land set aside so that the state can raise money to fund education, I think, was primarily what it's about.
Right, but as he was saying, it was undeveloped, but the reason for the undevelopment is because it's already owned.
Yeah. Correct.
And then
Commissioners of the Land Office.
the gentleman stated that they were going to leave 60% of the trees. All of the trees are already gone. He's already taken all the trees out. So unless he can replant them or whatever, there would not be any trees left on the 14 point whatever acres.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Already
I looked
cleared?
at it.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, so my client removed the red cedars, which I think have been basically declared a public nuisance. He also had to drill some test wells, and he cut a street. So all those things had to be done. He owns the property. He has the right to do it. There's no legal prohibition about clearing trees on, there is no legal prohibition about clearing trees on property.
But we were allowed to consider that, though, in our approval of this, so.
Allowed to consider what?
The ESA, that we want to preserve a certain number of trees. So I just feel like it's a pertinent question.
Perhaps, but I mean, that's kind of frankly, the odd thing about the comp plan, in that this request to preserve trees, what it forces some people to do is to go clear all the trees necessary before you come forward. And then you have to analyze it as of the date we file it and the application that's before you. And so, yeah, we had all these cedar trees. Those needed to go. So there's no legal prohibition about clearing trees on property.
Well, before we get into the weeds on that, I would like to state that, like, very simply, my view on this project is I agree with staff, and I agree with the protesters. And so, unless there's, something superbly enlightening in further arguments after this, I'm going to have to vote in denial of this project.
It just seems like that, that area is trending, though, for development. I don't know, what, I know you've got reserve, but it looked like, I know it's a section just north of there that is actually developed, and it just seems like that's the trend in that area, that it's moving that direction. Maybe slowly, but eventually I'm sure it's coming.
That's right. When you see developments in the rural part of the city, whether it's southeast or southwest, they're typically these 1 to 2 acre type development. And that is what's popular. That's what has become predominant when the land is developed. Again, one-off 5 acre tracts that get sold and someone puts their house, that's one thing. But when developers go in and developments, neighborhoods happen, this is the norm. 5 acre neighborhoods is certainly not the development pattern, I would not say.
We've seen other applications like this too that are certainly much more aggressive in their intended use, intruding on rural low. I mean, staff tell me that this is not fair, but rural low from a planning perspective is essentially akin to AA, right? It's essentially just laid on something because we don't really know what else to do with it and we don't know how it's going to develop. Is that fair?
You could probably consider that in the way that cities grow, these areas that are zoned AA, at some point in the city's growth and development would be rezoned to higher densities when services are available. So that's typically how cities grow into AA areas. However, when we did the comprehensive plan and made these analyses about these areas, it was very important to the citizens that we have a range of land use types for environmental reasons and for the farming and agricultural reasons, that we retain some of these areas as rural low intensity. Does that answer your question?
It does, but there's also, there's the acknowledgement by staff, right, that at some point as the city grows, some of that rural low intensity is going to be drug into, you alluded to that earlier by saying that in the event that you're located next to an urban low intensity, you're allowed to essentially be less than, or an acre, right? You're limited to an acre.
For the rural medium areas, yes,
Right.
because the rural medium areas also considered other efficiencies of service like fire protection.
Right.
So in rural low-intensity areas, those are really so far out because the comp plan's already tried to identify areas called urban reserve where urban growth would happen more efficiently because of city services. Rural low areas, I would suggest, would even be further beyond developing those urban reserve areas. So these are areas that just are not efficient for the city to serve at higher densities than what they're currently allowed to develop under AA.
Yeah, I could not agree with the comment that, the reason why we have this designation is because we didn't know what else to do with this property.
Well,
that's
not fair. That wasn't a comment. I was asking for a point of clarity. So if these were made that way for a specific, I just wanted to better understand, because if I were looking at this and I just looked at all these outlying areas that are at the city's boundaries, they were probably designated rural low because there's no other existing use there. But was that because the intention was to preserve them there forever, or is that because, like AA, just to liken it to zoning, that's what they're used for now, so that's how we're going to mark them? Is that fair?
Forever may be pressing a point a little too far, but I think, having gone through both the public outreach process for the comp plan and also the sector plans, the people who live in the southeast part of Oklahoma City are among the fiercest advocates for the preservation of these large lot residential sectors. And, I think this is what they want to do with it. It's not that they don't know what they want to do with it. This is it. So, I don't think there's any way to pass that off. I have to say for myself, and so I will, that I haven't heard anything that would make me disagree with the staff's analysis on this. So in terms of my personal vote, I know how I'm going to cast it. Do we need further discussion, or are we ready to make a motion?
I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know. I'm, for one, too new to really rock the boat too much. But still, after going out there and driving it and the roads aren't going to be able to stand a whole lot of traffic for much longer. Drainage looked like it would be an issue. It's about 30 foot high or so from the road to the, just to the lot line, and they've cut it down, and it's already started to erode pretty good. And it looked like they maybe cleaned it up since it rained and pushed all that stuff out of there. And that's really my biggest concern was drainage. And still, current landowners also would be, looking at it, if I was there, I wouldn't want it. If I was a developer, I'd want to build it, but I'm not, so.
So on the drainage, I mean, some of these items we're going to address specifically to the PUD, but if you want Dwight up here now, but it didn't seem appropriate to me on the comp plan specific, so Madam Chair, I leave it to you on when you.
Yeah, I think we need to vote on the comp plan amendment before we consider the PD, so.
So Mike, Commissioner Privet, staff recommends denial. What do you think? You want somebody else to go with a motion, or what do you think?
Like I said, I'm the new guy.
It's your ward as well, so yeah, and you've driven it and all those things, and staff recommends denial, whatever you think.
I'll get out there. I'll move to deny. I don't see, I'm not convinced this is the proper spot for this right now. I'm just not. So it's just my opinion.
Closer to Anderson, I think.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny the application for comp plan amendment. Would you cast your votes, please? It's denied.
Item 30 is the associated rezoning request, PUD 1664, for this application.
Of course we want to hear it. My client paid good money, and it's part of the process. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the owner, proposed developer, and the engineer who's also here with us. It is worth noting, when we filed this application the first time, there were 12 lots. Part of the concern was the density. We went back, reconfigured it, and we now have 8 lots, so that represents a 30% reduction. The tree coverage was an issue. Again, we got rid of cedars because, frankly, I think that's what a good steward of the property would do, is get rid of red cedars. We also cut a road. We had to drill test wells. He had to figure out whether or not he could serve this with water through private wells if he developed it. So he drilled 4 test wells. All of them produced at rates adequate to handle the development we propose. In addition, we had protests on both the east and the west, adjacent to us. We went and met with them. We came up with an agreement where we have a 40-foot tree buffer on both the east and west side of the PUD. And in addition, the trees that are there, the ones that people might want, we agreed to keep 60% of those. So with all that, we think we have come up with a solution that at least the people that own property that directly abut and would be impacted by this have signed off on. The ironic thing about the streets and the poor quality, the only way you're ever going to get the streets better is to have more rooftops. Because without more rooftops and more phone calls to the council, you're never going to get better streets. So it's a bit ironic to keep more houses away to preserve our bad streets when potentially allowing more rooftops there could potentially bring more funding and more care and desire by the council to put better streets there. So I do want Mr. Butler to address the drainage issue because it has been raised.
Dwight Butler with Anchor Engineering for the applicant again. The project currently drains from east to west. I have intercepted the runoff coming down the hill to the road, put the borrow ditch on the east side of the road to intercept the runoff, and have run it both to the north around the cul-de-sac and to the south just prior to the switchback curve coming in from the gates. And I have run it down on the west side of the property by stair-stepping a grass swell to keep the velocities and energy down, and riprap at the very end to knock the rest of the energy out of it. So that the drainage issues, I really don't see any on this project. This is one of the easier ones. Now, when we reduce the number of lots, we put the common areas up front so that future tree growth, initially we cut the road straight out and realized we had a sight distance issue, so we moved it to the far west. Now, once the trees grow back in the common areas out front, you won't even be able to see the residential back to the back. And it is a nice gated community going in.
What he's referring to, this entire front piece is all common area. So it's a distance of over 210 feet before you get to any lot. So both here and here will be platted as common area. And in the PUD, in the master design statement, the map that you have in the document shows that as well.
I was just going to ask, I do have people signed up to speak on this item as well as the previous one. Did you want to say something to us? Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Teresa Touchette, 12301 Southeast 119th. I butt up to their property. I'm right to the west of them. We have had our driveway wash out 3 separate times. We've had to pull dirt from our own property to fix it, and we tried to run railroad ties. They haven't done any of the drainage issues.
Okay.
And we don't want them out there. We don't want these many houses out next to us. I have very expensive horses, and if you bring in a development with more houses, they're going to bring their children, their dogs, their animals, their more traffic, and my animals are not used to that.
Okay.
Quick question. With denial of the previous item, can we even approve this?
You still can.
Yeah?
If you approved it, it would be not in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
You certainly can. And it's a recommendation that goes to, but, I mean, in all seriousness, there's been several over the last few years that have, the comp plan was denied and the zoning application, not by this body, but ultimately at City Council, were approved.
So I will be consistent, and I will move to deny this application.
Before we do that, is there anybody else who wants to be heard? Keeping in mind that we're about to deny this before you speak.
Okay, yeah, I just, real quick, they said they had approval from the people to the east and west of them. You just heard the lady that lives to the west of them that says, no, we didn't come to any agreement.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay, just make sure that was.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Scott Woodard.
Second.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I want to discount what was just said and that there is a legal agreement that basically said that there weren't any objections to the property owner to the west and the east.
Okay. Yes, we got that too.
That's what I was told originally, so, there wasn't any opposition that I was told, but clearly there is.
Well, people,
Let me-
people sometimes just come,
May I clarify that? We did not say there wasn't opposition. We told you there would be people that we couldn't satisfy. So I just want the record to be clear. I didn't tell you there was no opposition.
I didn't say who told me.
Okay.
I just said there wasn't.
Okay. In our meeting yesterday, we indicated that, yes, we can't make everybody happy, but we have legal documents with the people to the east and the west that they were supposed to be supportive, so.
Second.
Please. Did somebody second the motion?
It was seconded.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to deny item number 30. Would you cast your votes, please? It is denied.
Item number 31 is a
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You too.
Item number 31 is a resolution amending the comprehensive plan. This is to make various text and map amendments. When this item was introduced at the last Planning Commission meeting, we gave a presentation detailing all of the amendments that would be made to both updating text descriptions for clarification after having worked with the plan for the last 2 years. We've also made several updates to the land use typology area assignments detailed out. In the presentation of the introduction that we made last time, we also included that employment reserve amendment of the case that was on the agenda today, so that is included in the overall amendment. We've also added a new appendix so we can track all of the comprehensive plan amendments as they're made. And we've included new text about annexation and de-annexation actions and submittals to the city, as well as some new principles defining concepts for livable streets. And we are happy to go over any of that. I know that the commission reviewed it in a study session.
Was that the October study session? Is that what that was? Yeah.
Correct. And then introduced last time, and if there's anyone from the public who has any questions, we're happy to pull up the presentation or go through any details of that.
Is there someone who wants to be heard on this matter? I can see that there is. Would you be Randall Lee?
Yes, ma'am.
Give us your name and address.
Randall Lee. I'm at 6602 North Broadway Extension. I normally don't like to read statements because I think that it's more organized in my sense to speak from the heart and speak from an organization, but I do have a statement that I'd like to read because of the importance of this particular item. I am with the Alzheimer's Association, and we have very much a concern and support the Livable Cities project. We all know and believe that Oklahoma City residents deserve to travel safely around the city, whether they walk, bike, ride a bus, a train, or drive a car. People need bike lanes and sidewalks as well as roads to accommodate their preferred mode of travel. The Alzheimer's Association is very interested in sidewalks and appropriate bike lanes. At any age, walking and biking are lifestyle habits we can adopt to help and maintain the ability to improve our health. Now, you may ask, why is the Alzheimer's Association interested in this particular item? Well, with our low, yet, as we've heard recently, improving health statistics and health rankings due mostly to the prevalence of smoking, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, which all can lead to vascular dementia. This makes it the sidewalks and the ability to bike make it very easy to develop some very healthy habits. These habits help to keep our brains healthy as we age and possibly delay the onset of cognitive decline. According to systematic reviews and meta-analysis and over 20 prospective longitudinal and cross-sectional studies and randomized controlled trials, they have shown that physical activity, even in some cases mild physical activity such as walking, is associated with a decreased risk of cognitive impairment. Several randomized controlled trials have found that inactive but otherwise healthy seniors who begin an exercise program experience significantly improved cognitive function. The Alzheimer's Association, as well as some folks from the American Heart Association, are thrilled that the Planning and Zoning Commission has worked so hard to make safe and active transportation a priority in our city. By including the principle of livable streets in Plan Oklahoma City, making it a priority in future developments, the Planning Department and your commission are helping to make Oklahoma City an active and healthier place to live, work, and play. Thank you for your work on this policy.
Thank you for coming. This is one of those times when we get to take all the credit, but the staff really did all the work. And, the people of Oklahoma City really were the ones who kind of made their voices heard on this subject and wanted to make sure that that was very much a part of the comp plan when it was recently adopted. And through that process, they made it known that this was an important issue for them and one that they felt that the comp plan needed to address in a very significant way. So, is that it? Are we done?
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, so then I'll need a motion. These are the changes that we have previously reviewed and discussed. And
yes, ma'am.
So
yes.
Seconded. Over there.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
To approve the resolution amending the comprehensive plan. Would you cast your votes, please? It is amended.
The last item on the agenda for action is to adopt the 2018 meeting schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before we do this,
Are we
One of
meeting
them's on my
twice in
birthday.
August again? Wait,
Yeah, we have this comment.
Are we meeting twice in August now? What happened there? I thought we only met once in August.
well, this is every year I have.
Twice in August, once in September?
I still have
Am I-
school children, so.
Okay, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're looking
I
at the-
misread it.
Yeah, you're looking at the deadlines.
I'm looking at the wrong
I
side.
did that too when I first
Once
looked
in
at it.
July,
I
once...
still have children in school. They are now out of school in July and June and back in school in August. So for me, it would work better to have a single meeting in June and a single meeting in July and 2 meetings in August. But I realize that I'm, not the only person with school children anymore. And, yeah, it used to be just me, but now it's not. So I wanted to just bring that up and ask you all what you think of that idea. Does it matter to you whether we meet twice in June or in August? I mean, we only get 2 months off, and frankly, it's almost more work than it's worth to take them off because you see the way the agenda piles up. But if you all would agree, I would suggest that we meet once in June, once in July, and twice in August. How do we feel about that?
I would second a friendly amendment to Scott's motion. What do you think?
Was that 1 June, 1 July, 1 August?
No, I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can go with that.
I just want to make sure I got it straight. That's when Rusty was in favor of. He told me to suggest that.
Well, I've missed it. What's the requirement on meetings? We're trying to meet.
Well, we generally take off 2 months in the summer, so, I mean.
Why not 3?
Well, just because it's such a
So it's not a requirement,
pain
you're
to
just
come.
saying.
Well, I don't know about that.
It's really not, to Janice's point, if you only take, if we take off 3 months with only 1 meeting, we get really, you pay for it.
You double up the one time you meet, but you skip one. It evens out, or actually is more efficient. You drive down there, you get ready to snap your 3, you have one.
Well, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it is a real hardship on staff, I think, to double them up over such a long period.
I'll also just add to consider that Planning Commission's a recommending body to City Council, so it can really delay an applicant getting their final approvals of rezonings.
How often does the city council meet in the summer?
I
Don't they
think
do the same?
they're on every other week as well, but it could be that the dates of the commission meeting, if they're once a month, would push them to a later date.
They meet more often than we do, but they get paid.
But it's also their additional, like, taking time off that can really push applications, approvals pretty far. I'll be the only one up here to probably say I'm for meeting more often. I'd rather get these done quick.
I will be more likely to miss a meeting in the summer than any other time.
And I think that's true. I mean, the holidays and summer both, they're difficult to plan around, and that's just a reality, so.
That's my concern, is for me to ensure I can attend all 3 this summer. It would help to do only 1 a month, but if that's too much a burden for city or the applicants or anybody else, we can do 2.
You know, I think we try to be forgiving during those peak months.
It's helpful now we have a full 9 members on the
Yes, it
commission.
is. Yes, it
Opposed
is.
to this summer, it was tougher.
I'm fine with the amendment of June or July. I'm indifferent there. So I'd move for either one of those. It doesn't, so if there's other preferences, speak now.
Yes, this is it. Speak up.
I was going to say, y'all can bring me presents on the February 22nd meeting. It's my birthday.
So I'm indifferent.
Okay, well then let's make that change and meet once in June, once in July, twice in August.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the 2018 meeting and deadline schedules as amended. We don't actually know what that date is, but I'm sure staff will figure it out for us. So cast your votes, please. It's approved. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I need, well, let me go through my, excuse me. Let me go through my list. Thank you, I've got it. Planning Commission committees, we don't have any, but we may have some soon. I'll get back to you on that. Planning Commission members, Rusty, before you take off, anything you want to tell us? No? Planning Department, oh, well, then we'll forgive you. No? Development Services, they've already gone. Municipal Counselor's Office? Citizens to be heard? Other business? Motion to adjourn. Second? We're voting. We're adjourned.
Okay.